Morning guys, we're going to head up to Almahia today. We're going to head up to Almahia today in order to pre-run the race course that is this Sunday. So I'm racing this Sunday. It is a little bit shorter than what we've been training on. It's a 33k route, and so we've been training on around 50k deliberately. We're going to go up there and pre-run the route. I'm a licence holder now in the Federation in Andalusia, in this province. That means that I pay less per race, because part of that licence is an insurance fee. What I'm doing here, I'm just making sure that the caliper and the pads are centered on the disc. If you try and do it even with feeler gauges and set it exactly right either side of the disc, so you've got the same amount of tolerance and the same amount of distance between your disc and your pads, there's nothing to say that actually when the two pistons come in from the side and actuate on the disc, if that's the disc, and the two pistons come in and push the pads against the disc, there's nothing to say that they're actually going to come in exactly the same. It may be that one leads a little bit more than the other, so you get an actuation where one touches first before the other one. So it's always better to actually line the caliper up on the disc, so make sure the disc is tight on the wheel, so make sure that the disc is properly attached to the wheel here. And then once you know that's right and you know that the wheel is centered in the frame, you can then line the actual caliper up by squeezing the caliper on, squeezing the brake on. The two pistons come in and they line up exactly right. And then you know, so that you get absolutely no drag. And when you put that back brake on, both pads are coming in at the same time. Even if they come in at a different time, they actually make contact at the same time. Good, because I could just feel it when I was coming home the other day from the ride. I could just feel it start to touch. So it's something that's the pads where you've constantly got to adjust. You can adjust the in and out, the tension, the pre-tension, by adjusting the hydraulic pressure to bring the pads in and out, depending on how quickly you want the brake to activate when you squeeze it. So the actuation of the brake you can adjust up here. But the actual centering, you have to keep just recentering, because one pad might wear a little bit more than the other or whatever. So I wanted to do that this morning before I went. That's really the only thing that needs doing. Just check the tyre pressures, etc. But that was the only thing I wanted to do. I increased the air pressure in the fork the other day. I'll just walk you around the bike for a sec. So we've got rear disc brake, which is an Avid brake. You can see it, if you can see on here, you can see just below the surface, the actual mating surface with the brake, you can see it's starting to blue a bit here. It's where I'm making it hot. Maybe we need to look at a different disc. It's heating up. Same brake on the front, obviously a bigger disc because you do more braking as you do with any two-wheeled vehicle. You do more braking with the front than the rear. Same caliper, just a bigger disc. We've got RockShox forks, and these have, can you see this this rubber band? Now this rubber band is an indicator, so before I ride I slide that down, and then you've got all your travel marked on here, really for your preload, so that you know how much of the fork, whether you know your sag, let's say, so you're taking up 10%, 20% or 30% of the fork before you even start, before you even go anywhere. And this, ideally, this ring will actuate on here and tell you how much of the fork you're compressing. So if you're out riding, when you come back, if the ring's here, you know you're using about 50% of your travel. If the ring's up here, you know that you're using maybe 100% of your travel. And you have an air adjustment on the other side of the fork, which is underneath this cap here. So we've got a Schrader valve, car tire, automatic tire. Hold on. Must have been feeling strong when I did that up. There we go. So there's a Schrader valve there, and you have a specific pump. Obviously, sorry guys if you know this stuff, you know, some of you know this stuff, but it's interesting for people who don't. So you have a specific pump. This is a RockShox pump, and this pump obviously it has a gauge, manometer, in order to know what the pressure is, and this screws on, the end of that screws on, and then you pump up just a short pump it up. You can generate a lot of pressure very quickly with that. There's a release valve here just to ease off if you go over the top with the pressure, and the recommended pressure for my size and body weight is between 120 and 130 psi. And so what I did was I put it at 120 and I went out and rode with it at 120, and at 120 this ring was going all the way up to the top, so I was using all the travel. So then I went out with 125 and it was kind of up here, and now I'm on 130, and 130 is where we saw that rubber ring when we first started, so it was using about half the travel, which is fine. So then I know I've got a bit more. If I get any really big hits or anything, I've got a bit more travel still left. It's no good riding around all the time using all your travel up, because then if you hit something really big you're going to bottom it out and potentially come off or damage something. So that feels about right. We've got as you know, we've got this locker on the top here, and when you press that in, it's locked at the moment. When you press that in, it allows the fork to work properly, and when you undo it, it locks the fork. So when you're climbing, or if you're on the road and you don't need the suspension, and the suspension's just taking energy out, so what happens when you press that button, it just rotates this and locks the fork, and then when you press it again, it rotates back. So unlocked and the fork's working, locked and the fork is rigid. So it stops you wasting energy bouncing up and down when you don't need to, when you don't need the suspension. It's a carbon frame, so we made of carbon. We've got aluminium bars, aluminium stem, carbon seat post. So, you know, it's for me, it's a very well put together bike. I really like it. And this is what they call a 29er. So it's got 29-inch wheels, which is the new size. It does feel unusual when you first get on it. It feels, you know, the wheels are really big, so it sort of feels very different, even bigger than the gravel bike. The gravel bike has got what they call 700C wheels, and this has got it's a 700C. It's about 28 inches. It's a bit under, just around 28 inches, but this has got 29-inch wheels. Alright guys, well I'm just going to check the tyre pressures and just give it a little once over. I'm also going to measure my distance. If anyone's interested, I'll do another video on the setup. But I've got my clipless pedals, so my shoes clip into these pedals. They're double-sided, so they're the same on both. And this little screw here controls the tension, so you can adjust the tension in order to hold your foot more or less in terms of the rotation you need to come out. So if this is my foot coming into here, I'm clipped in, and then I have to rotate my ankle either that way, or I can come out forwards, but in this particular pedal it's not easy. On my other pedals, which are more expensive pedals on the gravel bike, much older but more expensive, you can come out forwards because they've got a slightly different catch here. These work very well. Shimano, they're double-sided. So if you haven't got your foot in, when this comes around, as you can imagine, as that comes around, it doesn't matter which side of the pedal is uppermost when you hit it. You can hit that side, or you can hit that side. You're going to clip in. So the advent of clipless pedals, which was in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, when they first started using clipless pedals, has changed the way frame geometry is put together. But that's another video. So if anyone's interested in all that stuff, the technical side of it all, we can of course talk about all that. And then the seat itself must be completely level, in terms of being level against the line of the bottom of the tyres. So if you put the bicycle on a level surface, the seat, regardless of its height or movement front to rear, because you can move it front to rear, on the other side of the seat here we've got a scale. Let's get you in a bit closer. There's a scale here, 0 to 15, 0 to 15. So you can slide the seat forward and back. It must always be level, and then you can obviously control the height of the top of the seat in relation to the height of the pedal. So we're talking about, let's try and get it on the camera, we're talking about the distance from the pedal up to the top of the seat, and that can be adjusted here on this bracket, so you can slide the seat post up or down depending on the height that you want. And that all relates to you, so that relates to your inside leg measurement, also relates somewhat to your physiology of your body, but basically for off-road riding, a very basic measurement is that with your shoes on, the distance from here to the top of the seat should be the same as your inside leg measurement, less 10 millimeters. That's the starting point. So you should be 10 millimeters short of your inside leg measurement. So my inside leg measurement is 830 millimeters, and so that distance from the top of the pedal there to here should start at 820, and then you make adjustments related to the thickness of your shoes and different things. So that ultimately, when you are pedaling, your leg, if I can put you down a moment, so you can see, difficult to tell sometimes with these cameras, what you can see, what you can't see. I'll just use my phone because I can see what you're seeing then. You need to be a bit further back, just put you over there. So in terms of your leg, it's no good that your leg is fully extended. When you pedal down, your leg mustn't be fully extended, because what that will end up in is you'll end up with rocking. Your hips will rock, and that's very bad. It's bad for you, and it's not efficient. So we must be just under that. We should be getting a full leg extension as we push down, but not to the point where we lock out, because as you get more tired, you know, when you first ride out from here, first 5 minutes, you'll be fine, but as you start to get tired, you won't extend your leg fully, and then you'll start to rock to compensate for that, and that's no good. It's no good for you. The idea of having your seat level is that your pelvis is completely level when you sit on the bicycle. So you have a very level pelvis. So you have a complete strong platform to cycle from. The moment you don't have that and you start rocking around, you're potentially creating issues inside your pelvis. So your pelvis is, surprisingly, is a very important part of cycling, just as much as the size of your legs. It's obviously a very important part of cycling, but you know, you've got to generate the power here, but this is the platform. The platform is you sit on the bicycle most of the time, and so you're generating the power from here, from a stable platform, in order to drive the pedals around. And so that's very important. So the position of the seat is very important. The setup of this is very important. And then you go into other things, such as once you have this approximate, once you have the approximate height here from the saddle to here, then the bend in your leg. So if we are looking, if we can see this, you can see my leg here. Okay, so let's get a bit more side on. When my leg is pedalling, when my foot is on the pedal, okay, so when my foot is on the pedal and I'm sitting on the seat, this angle here should be a very specific angle, well, within a range. So obviously if my foot is further extended down or it's lifted up, it changes that angle. So if the seat was lower, my leg would be higher, and if the seat was higher, my leg would be lower. So that angle there that my leg is creating, this angle, this line, relates to the height of the seat. And that's what you fine tune. Once you get the actual distance almost correct from the pedal to the top of the seat, you then sit on there, you make sure that, I'm sorry I'm moving you around a lot, I'm trying to describe this to you. You have to make sure that your knee is directly above the spindle of the pedal. So just behind your knee here, there's an indent. You have to find it. You can't do it with the trousers on. There's an indent. It's just there actually. So there's an indent there, and that indent, if you drop, so if you imagine my knee is here. If you drop a string line from that indent down, it must go through the centre of the pedal, through the spindle. So that should be directly below the centre of your knee. And the way you adjust that forward and back to make sure that it is you adjust the saddle forward and back. So the height of the saddle going up and down is going to control the angle of the top part of my leg, and that has to be within certain parameters. And then once it's within those parameters, you have to learn for yourself what's best for you. And the lower part, from your knee down to the pedal, so coming through the centre of the shaft of the pedal and up, has to be vertically above that spindle. And the way to adjust that is to move the saddle forwards and backwards. So you've got two adjustments: height from the pedal up to the top of the saddle is going to adjust the angle of the top part of your leg, this part, and then the lower part, the spindle, coming up to the centre of your knee, which must be directly above the spindle, so that the power of your leg is driving down through the pedal to the bottom of the pedal stroke. That's controlled by an adjustment forward and back on the rails here. So I hope that's explained a little bit about that. I mean, the the mechanics of cycling and setting up your bike correctly is, you know, it's a whole other thing. So you've got the mechanics of setting the bicycle up itself, and then you've got the mechanics of setting the bicycle up for you and your body, and then you've got to deal with your body and get your body working well. And at the moment, what I'm doing, the type of training I'm doing, I'm making really big gains. So of course, every time I go out ride, so providing I'm doing the right thing, providing I'm eating the right food and I'm doing the right thing, I'm making big gains. You know, I'm nearly, every time I go out, I'm nearly always setting a personal best on these climbs. So each time I go out, I do better on the climbs, measured on Strava. So I'm moving up the leaderboards on Strava with my training. So that's all very positive and great. But as you get better and better and better, the margins become smaller and smaller and smaller. And this is the whole ethos of cycling now. They call it marginal gains. So once you know, if I'm in a room, not me, because I'm 51 years old, but if I was an early 20s professional cyclist in a room of early 20s professional cyclists, and you know, apart from a few bits and pieces, we'd all be eating the same food, we'd all be doing the same training, we'd all be riding very similar bicycles. Therefore, we're all on a very, very level playing field. And the difference between the guy who is coming third or fourth all the time and the guy who's winning all the time is these marginal gains. They're tiny, tiny gains in every area. And things like having the bike set up. I mean, if I was really good and I was doing really well, I would go to a professional setup where they would actually fit the bike to me. And they go even further into it. They go into how your feet fit in your shoes, where the pressure is in your shoes, so many things. Your saddle, the pressure points on your saddle, the way your body is. They relate everything to your torso and the length of your arms, and it's just a huge thing. It's just a massive thing on its own. Obviously, at the level I'm at, I just need to go out and ride my bike. You know, it's top and bottom of it, and it wouldn't matter so much. I mean, I like to have my bike set up as best I can, and because I know about this stuff, I like to do it and be as efficient as possible using the bike. Having said that, now at the moment at my level, I just need to go out and ride the bike. You know, I need to build muscle mass, aerobic fitness, just generally improve, and I also need to lose weight so that my power to weight ratio is going up. So I'm working towards a power to weight ratio of 3 at the moment. That's 3 watts per kilo, meaning that my body will generate 3 watts for every kilo of my body weight, and that I can generate that power for 1 hour consistently. So I should be able to ride that bike generating 3 watts of power per kilo. Bearing in mind I'm aiming for a body weight of 80 kilos, and I'm currently 80. This morning I'm 86.2, so I've lost pretty much 4 kilos without any kind of strange dieting or anything, just eating better food and a lot of exercise, or let's say more controlled food. It's the same food, but it's just a bit more controlled. So ideally, if my body weight is 80 and I am generating 3 watts per kilo, I'm going to be generating 240 watts consistently for 1 hour, which means I could light, you know, however you want to do, 6 40-watt light bulbs in your home for an hour by cycling my bicycle. So that's how it works out. That's how we're working out the power. We're saying that I would be able to light 6 40-watt light bulbs in your property for 1 hour, and that's the power I can put out consistently. And so we need to, you know, that's what we're working towards. So we need to be watching that all the time. We need to be watching the weight, we need to be watching our body mass index, and we need to be watching our muscle percentage, the percentage of the muscle in our bodies. So there's a number of things, and that's all going reasonably well. Again, you know, it's a whole other video. I mean, a few of you have expressed interest in me talking about food, so we could do a video on the food. We could do a video on the physiology, not so easy to say, the physiology of it all, what we're aiming for, and why some things are better than others for your body. And we could do another video about the mechanics of the bike, and you know, it's not quite so simple. You know, having it all set up correctly is not quite so simple. But once you understand the reason behind the thinking, why you would adjust that and why you would adjust this, then you kind of start to get to grips with it all. So let me know. You know, let me know. This is just it's going to be a, I don't know, 25-minute video or 20-minute video by the time I've edited it up. It's just what we're doing this morning. We're going up to Almahia to run the racetrack. I'm just getting prepped with the bike, and I just want to talk to you about a few things to give you perhaps a greater understanding of what's going on. But I mean, I don't want to do stuff that's not interesting for people, so if it's not interesting, guys, just let me know. You know, we won't do it. Okay, I hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to finish off getting this ready, and it's starting to warm up a bit now. The sun's coming up, so we will have a look. Let's see what time is now. Time is now great. It's 11 o'clock, so that's good. We'll try and get up to Almahia sort of 12:30, and then we can do this route and then come back down. Alright guys, I'll catch up with you a bit later. We'll do a little ride along in the car probably when we get up there. Okay, bye for now.